everyone. So this is a tutorial for the String Orchestra Excerpt for HYS. And at the end of the video, if you kind of watch through the whole thing, I will play the whole excerpt. So one of the main things I want to talk about for this excerpt is actually the notation of some of the ways we see things on the page, because you may not have seen this before. So something that may be confusing if you haven't seen before is where you see the half note with the 1/ underneath. This means you play eighth notes for a half note, basically a half note worth of eighth notes, so 2 beats of eighth notes. And then when you see the quarter note with the / underneath, it means a quarter note worth of eighth notes, so just 1 beat of eighth notes. So basically, even though it looks a little weird on the page, if you look right at that fortissimo, the second line here, I'll play kind of slow motion. So that's kind of how it would sound under tempo. So there's 4 eighth notes on all the half notes, and then there's 2 eighth notes on all the quarters. Another thing that may look a little weird is we have this kind of notation with the articulation where, like, for example, kind of in the beginning at number 9, we have like these slurs where the second note has a dot under it. So for me, I don't think it means you don't stop the bow between the 2 notes. It just means the second note is kind of short. So basically there's a little space between the second note of the slur and then the following note. So like for measure 9, the articulation. So I didn't stop the bow during the slurs, but I just left a little space before the next note. And then kind of the last thing that you may wonder, what is this, is at number 10, you see the little kind of bracket here, kind of square bracket. This basically means that we're going to hook the bow. So it's, you know, a lot of times we would just see the actual slur mark, and for some reason they wrote it like this with the square. And in this case, it happens to all be up bows every time it happens. So from measure 10, or number 10, kind of slow motion from the piano, all those are up bows. Then down on the slur, then up, and then it's the same idea. Guess there's no measure numbers here in number 10. So if 10 is 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6th bar of number 10, you have the same bracket. It's also up on those 2 Ds. And then it's the same thing on the last line as well. So we do have this 8VA passage at the end, which means an octave. You play those notes but an octave higher. However, it does say at the instructions here that HYS has provided, at the end of the title, it says 8VA ad-lib optional. So I think they really do mean that it's optional. So if you feel comfortable, if you feel confident in those upper positions, maybe you've done a lot of 3-octave scales, the highest note is basically, if you know your D major 3-octave scale, that high D, that's the highest note of your scale, basically. So if you can play that scale, these are all, I remember one teacher I had told me this advice at one point and said, you know, Rachel, you know all these notes, they're just in a different order. So basically, you probably know all these notes from different scales, and they're just in a different order. And one fingering that I would like to give you guys an option is, so the 8VA section, it's the 1, 2, the 3rd full bar of that section, shifting up to that A. So in the part, it's marked a 3rd finger there. I actually would play it with a 4th finger. So it's up to you, and it's up to your private teacher, depending what you think fits your hand better. But if you shift to a 4th finger on that A, then you're already in position for that 1st finger E on the fortissimo, the next bar. So basically, if you go to a 3rd finger, you have to then reach back again for the E, and then way back up for the B. So I'll play kind of slow motion. sorry. So that should be the A shifting to fourth finger. And then first finger should be right here. So for me that's easier. I don't know, it will depend on your hand, it will depend on what you've already practiced. If you already learned it the other way, then go with that. The other thing I would like to talk about with this excerpt is the character. And so the actual title of this piece is Simple Symphony. In my opinion, it's not really simple, because actually professional orchestras would play this, this same symphony. So it's professional level symphony. But my interpretation of the title is more the character. So even if you do the higher octave, you want to kind of give it this character of simple, even though it's not. So, so if you can kind of interpret like that, this movement itself is called frolicsome finale. So frolicsome, I think of, skipping, I think of joyful. So this is kind of the character of this. And then other than that, as far as preparing for the audition, I would say record yourself often and early. So, I would start right away. If the audition's not till May, I would actually give yourself some time before that. Check your camera, check your setup, so that by the time of the week of the audition, you can record your final takes and then choose the best one. Okay, thank you so much. And if you stick around, I will play the full excerpt. Thanks.